तिथं ते वायरलेस हे दिसतंय का असे डिसेबल लोकल एरिया वायफाय कनेक्शन डिसेबल दिसतंय ना 5 आयकॉन आहे ना त्याला फ्री ड्राइव में आठ बोल के एक लिंक किया है यूट्यूब की लिंक वो देखो इंटरैक्टिव हाँ ठीक है वो कुछ है तो ग्रुप में शेयर करो वो लिंक ओपन करने एक चालू है तो चालू कैसा है ये क्लोज कर रहा है हाँ 10 एडाप्टर सेटिंग वायरलेस नेटवर्क कनेक्शन आता डिसेबल दिसत आहे त्याला राईट क्लिक करून इनेबल करून बाकी काय नाही बाकी इन दोनों में क्या है हे चालू आहे ते मी प्रिंट काढून ठेवलेली चालू आहे ना दिसतंय ते
युट्यूबला पण
स्क्रीन शेअरिंग केली
बंद करू का?
स्क्रीन शेअरिंग केली तर खाली काय वाटल करू
हे काय हे बघ
आणि ना माहिती का जिथे बघितलं सिस्टमचं नाव आणि फेसबुक खाली वरती करतो जाऊ दे आता पण लक्षात ठेवा वरती आणि तुम्ही युट्यूबला बघितलं तर कसं लागतं ते जेव्हा याचं जातं ना मॅडम काय सगळं मुलं झाले मला आहे ना पासपोर्ट काय टाकलं Video on. Video on. Video on. Open video display. इकडे उंदा. तो कॅमेरा थोडा तिकडे सरतो मला. आता वो हो गया. अभी कैमरा का मतलब.
Good morning. Thank you all of you for this workshop. On the behalf of Systel Technical Education Society, Systel Institute of Management and Research, Dhule. We organized 2-day workshop on Core Java. Yesterday we have completed 2 sessions by Mrs. Vijaya Ahire Madam, Assistant Professor of R.C. Patel, Institute of Management and Research, Shirpur, and Dr. Rupali Patil Madam, Assistant Professor of SSOPS, late Karmabir Dr. P.R. Ghogre Science College, Dhule. So let's we start our second day in this workshop. Now it's time to introduce our today's resource person. I would like to introduce Dr. Harshali Patil Madam. She is currently working as Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science in Dr. Anna Saheb GD Bendaya Mahila Vidyalaya, Jalgaon. She has 12 years teaching experience. She has qualified NET exam. She has published 5 papers in international journals and 10 papers in national conference. She has worked as session chair for national level paper presentation competition. She has worked as organizing member for organizing member computing. She has worked as organizing member for faculty development workshop on cyber security. She has awarded first prize in university level research festival in Avishkar 2008. Also received second prize in university level research festival in Avishkar 2007. So I request to Dr. Harshali Patil Madam to start our session. Harshali Patil Madam.
हात पण नाही लागू द्यायचं, जास्त जवळ पण नाही द्यायचं.
संधी मारल्या नाही ना.
हॅलो
Hello.
मॅडम
Oh,
चालू करा.
okay. Uh, Thanks, ma'am, for your nice introduction. A very good morning to one and all. Myself, Dr. Harshali Patil. At the outset, first of all, I would like to thanks to Dr. H.M. Patil sir and the whole organizing team for inviting me to deliver the talk on this national level workshop on core Java. So, uh, in this particular talk, I will going to cover applets, AWT, AWT event handling, MVC, that is model view controller, and layout managers. So I will start my discussion with applet and then we'll go for one by one for all these topics. So what is an applet? Next slide. So what is an applet? So in Java programming language, there are basically two kinds of program. The first kind of program is an application program and the second kind of program is an applet program. So applet is a special type of program that is embedded in the web page to generate dynamic content. Means you can execute the applets in the browser. These applet runs inside the browser and these applets work at the client side. So these applets are generally used for developing the animation and games program. And an applet is simply a Java class that extends java.applet.applet class. Any class which is derived from base class applet is called as the applet. So user defined applets means you are creating your own applet and that time you have to extend those applets from java.applet.applet class. Next slide. So what is the hierarchy of applet class? So in Java programming language, you have object class which is present in the root of inheritance hierarchy. So object is present at the root of inheritance hierarchy. So that's why object is called as a cosmic superclass. It is the ultimate superclass for all classes of Java programming language. Then component class is derived from object class. Then you have container class which is derived from component. And there are two subclasses for the container. First one is window and second one is the panel. So from window you have frame class and from frame you have JFrame class. And from panel class you have applet class and from applet you have JApplet class. JFrame and JApplet, these are the swing versions. Next slide, please. Then we are going to discuss that what are the steps or phases of the applet. We're going to call it as a applet life cycle. So what is the life cycle of the applet? So when you are going to write down the applet program, then you are going to use execute that particular applet program. So when you are executing the applet program, the very first step the applet goes is in init state. Init state is the state where the applet is initialized. So whatever initialization code is there, you have to write down that particular code within the init method. Then the second method is start method. So in start method, you have to write down the code which you needs to be executed when user visits on this particular applet page. So you are going to write down the start method second at the second position. Means when the applet is executed, init method is called. After init, your start method is called. This is the second step. Then whatever you want to display in the applet window, that you have to write in a paint window, that paint method, sorry. So whatever you want to display in the applet, that applet window, that you have to write in the paint method. So paint method is the method which is present in the component class. It is not present in the applet class. Applet class provides you the component class. So your applet is initialized, then it is started, then you are going to do something on that particular applet, you are going to perform certain painting on that particular applet, and finally you are going to stop that particular applet. The applet is going to be stopped when you are moving your control from the page where applet sits to the another pages. And then finally you have the destroyed phase when your applet is going to be destroyed. So this is the life cycle of the applet. There are 5 phases: init, start, paint, stop, and destroy. And the corresponding methods are present in java.applet.applet class. Java.applet.applet class provides you 4 methods: init, start, stop, and destroy. And component class provides you paint method. We are going to discuss these methods in detail. Next, please. So, as I already discussed earlier, that init method is going to be called when your applet is first loaded. When your applet is loaded, the very first time your init method is going to be called. So that's why you have to place all the initialization code in this particular init method. So whatever variable, whatever members you want to initialize, you have to put all that particular code in init method. And this init method is only is invoked at only one time. When your applet is executing within the life cycle of the applet, the init method is executed only once. So it is invoked only once. Then when your init method is invoked, after that the second method is the start method. So start method, in start method you required to write down the code which you want to execute when the user visits that particular applet page, when the user visits the browser page within which the applet resides. So the start method is executed every time when user visits the browser page that contains the particular applet. So the start method is executed after the init method. And whenever you are going to maximize the browser, the start method is going to be executed. So start method is executed at several times whenever you are going to visit to that particular page where the control, where the applet resides, where the applet sits. So whenever you are going to move the control to that particular page, your start method is going to be executed. So it can be executed at one or many number of times. Then the next method is the stop method. So stop method needs to be executed every time whenever the user leaves the browser page which contains this particular applet. So where the applet sits, if you move your control from that particular page to another page, stop method is going to be executed. So the stop method of the applet, ultimately what we can say that the stop method of the applet can be executed whenever you are going to minimize the browser. So whenever you are going to minimize the browser, the stop method is going to be executed. Then the next method is destroy method. So the destroy method is executed when user exits the browser, and the destroy method is also invoked only one time. So destroy method and init method are invoked at only one time, while start and stop method can be invoked at the several amount of time whenever you are going to move the control to the page where the applet resides, and whenever you are going to move out your control from the page where that particular applet resides. So respectively, the start and stop method are going to execute it at several times. Now these things are these things whatever we have discussed, the methods we have discussed are related with the applet. Now whatever things you want to display in the applet window, so that thing where you are going to write down, so you have to override the paint method of the component class. So the paint method provides you the object of the graphics class which is used for performing the drawing. Like you can draw oval, you can draw rectangle, arc, and many more kind of shapes, or you can display certain strings within the applet, within that particular applet window. So for that particular thing, you can use the pent method. So pent method is the method where you are going to write down the code which you want to display in your applet window. Next, please. So this is a simple program. So in my discussion, I am going to cover the things which are very simple, because this workshop is intended for UG and PG student. So from basic, I am trying to cover this particular topic so as each and every student can understand, those who knows Java and those who do not know Java, and trying to understand it at a very first time. So very simple program I have written for demonstrating the example of the applet. So what this program consists of? This program consists of very few lines. At the very first line, the the first line is import java.applet.applet class. So yesterday you have two sessions and you learned about how to write the programs in Java. So in Java, as you are importing the header files in C and C++, in Java you have to import the classes. So for importing that particular classes, import statement has been written. So this import statement has two forms. So I will explain these forms whenever it comes in my code. So the first form I'll explain here, that is import java.applet.applet and semicolon. So sometimes you might have seen in this programming that sometimes dot star is there at the last and sometimes it is not there before semicolon. So here import java.applet.applet means we are only importing applet class which is available in applet package. So we required to override the methods which are available in applet class like init, start, stop, and destroy. So we required to override this particular method. So that's why it is necessary for us to import the applet class. And the second class which I have imported over here is a graphics class, because I want to execute two methods, draw string and draw rect. And for executing this particular method, for calling this particular method, I require the object of the graphics. So for this line, I have executed the graphics class. So import java.awt.graphics class. Then we are going to write down our code. So public class applet example1 extends applet. In the very beginning slides demonstrating what is applet, we discussed that an applet is a program which extends java.applet.applet class. So here your applet should extend the applet class. So public, because this is the main class which is going to be called automatically when the program is going to be executed. So from public environment, the class should be accessible. So that's why we have specified public as an access specifier to this particular class. Public, then class is a reserved word. Applet example is name of my program, extends applet. Then the body of your applet class starts. The very first method is init method. We discussed that init method is the first method which is executed when your applet started. When your applet executed, init is the first method which is executed first. So whatever initialization you want to do, you have to write down all that particular code in init method. Here I don't want to initialize any data member. My code is not complicated. I'm not going to initialize any variable or any member. So that's why the body of init method is null. Then pent method, I want to pent something on the applet window. So what I want to do, I want to display the string which consists of welcome. So the string welcome string I'm going to display in the applet window. So that's why I had executed, so that's why I had written drawString method, g.drawString. Then three parameter I pass. First parameter is the string which I want to display on the applet window, within the applet window, and second and third parameter are the coordinators which specifies the position within applet window where you want to display this particular welcome string. So for specifying that position, second and third parameter, it is related to x and y coordinate respectively. Then in applet window, you might have seen the output of this program also on this slide itself. So welcome string is there along with a rectangle. So that particular rectangle is drawn with the help of draw rect method. So draw rect method takes 4 parameters, x and y coordinate from where you want to start the rectangle, and width and height of that particular rectangle. So these 4 parameters are there. So g dot draw rect. So you're using the graphics object for calling this method draw string and draw rect. So this is a very simple program, the applet, that how to write a applet. Next, please. Now, when you have written the applet, then applet, the execution of applet is little bit different as compared to the execution of your application program. In your application program, what you are going to do, you are going to compile the program and you are going to interpret that particular program, and you will get the output of that particular program. But applet runs within the web browser, and in browser you can render the HTML file. So browsers are used to display the HTML code. Every one of you might have known this particular thing. So for displaying the for executing the applet in the browser, what you required to write down one more additional file, that is what a HTML file. So first, when your Java file is ready, you just compile that particular Java source file. When you compile that Java source code file, then which file is created? Every one of you might have known that .class file has been created when you compile any Java source file. So Java C is Java compiler. So when you compile any source code file, then .class file is created that can be interpreted with the help of Java. So we are going to compile the source file first. When you compile the source file, .class file will going to be created. This .class file we are going to use in our HTML file. So second step is you required to create a HTML file. So create an HTML file which tells the browser which class file to load first and what should be the size whenever you are going to load that particular class file. So we are going to write down few lines. These are the HTML tags. You almost all of you might have known this particular tag, HTML body, and only important line is this applet. So what is the code of the applet which you want to execute within the browser? So our applet example one dot class. What was the name of our applet? Our name of our applet is applet example one dot Java file. So when you compile that particular file, it creates an equivalent class file. Java is a case sensitive. Whatever name you have specified, same thing you have to use. Don't make the change of the case also, otherwise it will fire you an error message. So applet code equals to applet example one dot class is the name of the .class file which you want to load. And what should be the width and height of that particular applet window? So for specifying that, we have used two attributes, width and height of the applet tag. So width equals to 300, height equals to 300. Means when my program is going to be executed, it will create an applet window of size 300 by 300. Then close the applet tag, close your body tag, close the HTML tag. Now to properly view the applet, you have to simply load the HTML file in the browser. There are obviously various ways for executing these particular applet. Now, if you are if you want to execute the applet with the help of applet viewer, on the command line, you have to write down applet viewer and name of this particular HTML file. Myapplet.html is the name of the file which I have specified in this particular example. If you are using IDE like Eclipse or NetBeans, there are various options. If you are using Eclipse, then you have to select run option from the menu and then from the run as Java applet. You have to select these options which are available in your menu bar. If you are using the NetBeans IDE, you can simply right click on that particular file, applet file, and you just say run file. That file is get executed. You don't have to write down the applet code explicitly. But if you are using textpad and writing the applet, write down the applet in the textpad, compile it, write down the HTML file, and open the browser, give the address of the HTML file, and the output of your applet is going to be loaded in that particular browser window. I think now everyone of you might have understand that how to write and execute an applet. Next, please. Next slide. Now, as I already discussed you that there are basically two kinds of programs in Java. The application program, and the second kind of program is a applet program. So if you have written the graphical application program already and you want to execute it in the browser, you want to execute it within the browser, so you want to convert that application into an applet. So how do you are going to do that particular thing? So is it necessary for you to write down the applet code from scratch? No, there is not any necessity to write down applet code from scratch. If you have a graphical Java application ready in your hand, with the help of few steps, you can easily convert it into an applet program. So the first thing is that make an HTML page with the appropriate tag as whatever we have written in our previous case, myapplet.html. Write down the same kind of code and provide write down the same kind of code and use the appropriate tag of HTML. Then whatever your main class is there in your graphical Java application, so that main class must be a subclass of the JApplet class or applet class. So it extends applet or JApplet, and this class should be public. As I already told you that this class should be public. Otherwise, your applet will not going to be loaded. Then main method will be there in your graphical Java application. We have discussed the first applet. So in that application, we don't have any main method. So instead of that particular thing, here you have the init method. So eliminate the main method which is available in your application program. Do not construct the frame window for that particular application program. Here the application will be displayed inside that particular browser. So remove that particular code. Then whatever code which you have written in the constructor of the frame window. Now frame window is not there, so constructor of frame will also not be there. So whatever code which you have written in the constructor of that particular frame window, remove that particular code from that place and place it within the init method of the applet. So move all the initialization code from the frame window constructor to the init method of the applet. So you don't need to explicitly construct the applet object. The applet object is constructed automatically by the plugins available in the Java. So browser will going to instantiate your applet, and it will call the init method for you. So no need to call the init method explicitly. As we are not calling the main method, same thing, no need to call the init method. Then there is the call for set size and set title method in your graphical graphical application. So remove this particular call of set size and set title method, because where we had set the size for the applet in the applet tag. Applet tag in the HTML file has two attributes, width and height. We are going to set the size for the applet within that particular attribute. So no need to use set size method. Also no need to use set title method, because HTML has a title tag. So you can use that particular title tag and you can specify the title for your HTML page. So no need to use a set title method. Then you have a call for set default close operation. So applet cannot be closed. It is terminated when the browser will going to be exit. So no need to call to set default close operation. So remove all these particular method. And then there is a call to set visible method, because by default the frame is not visible. So that's why we have to give a call to set visible method, and we have to specify the parameter as true. So as your frame can be visible. So applet is displayed automatically. So that's why there is also not necessity to give a call to set visible method. So you can follow these few steps, and your application program can be easily converted into an equivalent applet program, which you can run within the web browser. Next slide. Then we are going to move towards our second topic, that is what AWT. Now, what AWT is. So we have discussed that graphical Java programs we are going to create. So what is graphical Java programs? Graphical Java programs, or the program which consists of graphical user interface. Means if you want to write down the program which consists of GUI, where certain components are there. So for constructing these particular components, we are going to discuss the several topics like AWT. So AWT stands for Abstract Window Toolkit. So AWT is platform dependent API, which is used for creating graphical user interface for your Java program. It is used for creating GUI for your Java programs. So it is a platform dependent. Listen it carefully. AWT is platform dependent API, which is used for creating graphical user interface for your Java program. So nowadays AWT is rarely used. Swings are preferred API over AWT. Why it is so? Because first thing is AWT is platform dependent and it is heavyweight in nature. Why heavyweight in nature, or what does it means? It means that the whatever components that are generated with the help of AWT, all these components are being generated by the underlying operating system. So that's why it is heavyweight nature. And the in swing is the preferred API for window based application, because first thing is it is platform independent and it is lightweight in nature. So swing is built upon AWT API, but it provides a look and feel unrelated to the underlying platform. Means if you change the platform, still the look and feel of the application remains steady, still it remains the same. So swing is built upon AWT, and it has more powerful and flexible components as compared to AWT. Next slide, please. So this is the hierarchy for the AWT classes. So we already discussed that object is a cosmic superclass which is present in the root of the hierarchy. Then you have component class which is derived from object, and several types of components are there in AWT hierarchy. So respect to that particular components, there are various classes like label, button, checkbox, choice, list, scroll bar, text component. There are two types of text component. You can have a text field which consists of a single line text, or you can have a multi-line text. So for that multi-line text, you can make use of text area component. Then container is there. So from container, you have a window or panel. From panel, you have a applet, and from window, you have a frame class. So this is the hierarchy for the AWT components. Next slide, please. So here we are going to write down the simple program that demonstrates the component of some of the component of the AWT classes. So now which class, which package we required? We required AWT package. Now here I have used the second variation of the import statement. Import java.awt.star semicolon. What does it mean? We are importing all the classes and methods and subclasses which are available in your AWT package. So import java.awt, because we are making the use of the already existing classes which are available in AWT package. So that's why we have written this import statement. Then public class AWT demo, which extends a frame class. Now, whenever you are going to create the GUI program, frame should be there. Sometimes frame panel should be there. So here we are extending the frame class, AWT frame class, which we have discussed in our previous slide. That frame class we are going to extend, and we are going to create our new class, AWT demo class, which extends a frame class. So we are going to write down the constructor uh, of this for this particular class. AWT demo is the constructor for this particular class. So what does it consist of? We are going to create several components, and we provide the initial state to those particular components. So all these particular code we are going to write down within the body of the constructor. So first thing, we are going to add the label in our frame window. Simultaneously, you might have you might the output of the program is also available in this particular slide. So simultaneously, just have a look towards that output of the program also. So what does it consist of? It consists of a label, user ID. So label, how to create a label? So for creation of the label, the first statement in the constructor is use label LB equals to new label. What label you want to display? User ID is the message. I want to display it as a message, as a label. So that's why I had specified it. Then we have to add this particular label on the frame. So that we did with the help of the second statement. Add LB means label is added on the frame. Then similarly, we have added a text field. Text field T equals to new text field, and we add the text field T on that particular frame. Then we had added one button also. Button B equals to new button. What caption you want to specify for this particular button? What text you want to display on this particular button? You have to specify that over here. So here I had specified click me on the button. Then what should be the size of that particular button? So for setting the size of that particular button, and for setting the position of that particular button, so not set size, for setting the position of that particular button, I had used the set bound method. So b dot set bounds 30 comma 100 comma 80 comma 30. It sets the button position. I add the button to the frame. So for that, add method is used, add b. Then what should be the size of the frame? So here set size method is there. Set size method sets the size for the frame. When your frame is going to be displayed, when you execute the program and your frame is going to be constructed, how long it should be, what should be the size of that particular frame? So 300 comma 300. Then set layout. Whenever we are going to add the components on this particular frame, how these components are to be added on that particular frame. So which layout you want to use? Here I had used flow layout. Then by default the frame is not visible, so you have to make this particular frame as visible. So that's why set visible equals to true. And whatever components, whatever resources you have gained while executing this particular program, when you want to release those resources, you require one more method, that is dispose. But if you execute dispose method, if you write dispose method and execute the program, it will provide the output and immediately closes that particular window. So because it releases that particular resources. So dispose method is used for that particular purpose. So these are the things that you require to write down in the constructor. In this way, your frame is going to be constructed. Now you have to write down the main method, public static void main string args. Yesterday you might have learn or understand these particular thing, why we are going to write down public static void main string and args. I'm not going to discuss it in detail because I think that you, every one of you might knows that particular thing. Then we have to create the object of this particular frame. So AWT demo F equals to new AWT demo. And when you are going to create the object, the constructor is the function which is going to be called automatically. So the frame is constructed automatically. So in this way, here I just want to show you that how to add AWT components and how to create a GUI application. So as I have added 3 components over here, you can add many more components with the help of other available classes which are available in your AWT hierarchy. Next, please. Now, in our previous example, what we did, we had added the component, we added the label, we added the text area, and we added the button, click me button. But the button is not doing anything. If you execute the program and click on that particular button, it is not going to do anything. Hello? Hello, sir. Is there any problem? So, if we are going to write the program as whatever we have discussed in previous case, we had added the button. But if we execute it and we click on that button, nothing will going to be happen. Why? Because we didn't handle the event that if the button click, what needs to be executed, that we didn't specified until now. So what, how to do that particular thing, that comes under event handling. So we are going to discuss our next topic, that is event handling. So what is an event? We first try to understand what is an event. So whatever objects you have in your hand, so changing the state of that particular object is called as event. Means if you have a button, you are clicking on that particular button. So clicking a button is an event because it changed the state of that particular object. Then if you are having a mouse, then dragging the mouse is an event. So changing the state of object is known as an event. For example, clicking a button, dragging the mouse, these are the several types of event. Now, how does this event handle in Java programming language? So event delegation model is there, which is used to handle these particular events. And along with this, you have java.awt.event package, which provides you many classes and interfaces which are used for event handling in Java programming language. Java.awt.event package provides you many classes and listener interfaces which are used to handle the event. Next, please. So we are going to understand how to handle the event in Java programming language. Before understanding that, we are first trying to understand what are the components that comes in this particular scenario. So here there is one listener object. So what is a listener object? Listener object is nothing but it is an instance of the class that implements a special interface which is called as a listener interface. So listener object is nothing but it is the instance of a class that is going to implement an interface, and that interface is of kind listener interface. Several listener interfaces are there. If we take the example of button, then I told you that after clicking a button, I want that something should be happen. So who is responsible for that particular thing? So when you click on that button, so, it should be notified that which button I had clicked. So action perform is the method which you can override, which is available in the action listener interface. And you implement this action listener method, sorry, interface, override the action perform method, specify the code that what you need to be executed whenever the user clicks on a specific button. Then whenever you click on that particular button, the things will going to be happen. So later on we are going to discuss the program also. That time you might have you understand the things more clearly. So there is a listener object, which is instance of the class which implements a special interface, which is called as a listener interface. Then certain sources will be there, means someone will going to generate the event. So event source is there. So event source means in our case button. So button is the source of the event. So event source is nothing but it is the object which can register the listener objects and sends them event objects. Then event source send out event objects to all the registered listeners that the event occurs when that particular event occurs. So listener object will then use the information in the event object to determine their reaction to the event. So here one diagram is present on this particular slide, which demonstrate event source, event listener, and listener interface. So there might be one event source or one or many number of event sources. Means you can have a single button or you can have more than one number of button. Suppose if we are going to discuss the application where you have three buttons, red, green, and sleep button, and you want to change the background of the window when the user clicks on that particular button respectively. So there are three sources. Either you can click on a green button, you can click on a red button, or you can click on a blue button. So event source can be one or many. Event listener is there, which implements the listener interface. So event listener is the object that implements the listener interface. So these three things are there that comes in the picture. Next thing, next slide. Then whenever you are going to write down the program which handles the event, every program that has an event handler has these three statement, we can say, or this 3 bit of code is always there. In the class statements of the event handler code, you have to declare the class which implements a listener interface. It can implement a listener interface as like action listener. Or if it is not implementing a listener interface, it should extend a class which implements the listener interface. We can say that if we are not implementing the listener interface, might be where we have to extend from the adapter class. So adapter classes are there, so you can extend your class which extends the adapter class, and this adapter class implements the listener interface, implements the listener interface. So indirectly you are going to write down the class which implements the listener interface. So here the statement, the definition of the statement, the syntax of the statement is something like this: public class, say my class, implements action listener. Action listener is the interface which is going to be corresponds to the action events, action event type of thing, and it has a single method, action perform method. So public class my class which implements a action listener. So in this way you can create a class. Then once you create that particular class, you have to write down the code that registers an instance of the event handling class as a listener upon one or more component. Means some component like button. Suppose I had created a button for blue color. So but blue color button, if suppose it is b1, then b1 dot add action listener, this I'm going to write down in my program. So some component dot add action listener instance of my class. Then the third thing is that the implementation of method in the listener interface. So what you need to be execute when the button has been clicked, so that you have to write down in the method which is overridden method of the listener interface. So you have to implement the methods which are available in the listener interface. So if you are implementing the listener interface, you have to override the methods which are available in that particular listener interface. So in our case, if we are using action listener interface, it has a single method, action perform method. So you have to define that particular thing: public void action perform action event e. So these these 3 bits of code should be there if your program or if you want to try to handle the event. Next please. So here how these events are notified. You have a frame, then suppose you have a button and you have a listener interface. So you add the button on your frame, you registered it with the listener interface, add action listener in this particular case. Whenever the each time when the user clicks on that particular button, the associated listener objects will going to receive the action event, and these action event indicates that this specific button has is clicked, and then it is passed or it is going to be called action perform method, and the action perform method will executed and will perform the desired task. So we have a program, that time you can understand the things more clearly. Next slide please. Next please. So here, this is a simple program. Whatever applications we are discussing, we are going to continue the same application. So here, this is a applet. Applet is created. Applet program is created because up till now you know how to write down the applet. So what we are going to do, we are going to try to add 3 buttons on the applet, and then we are going to change the background color of the applet window depending upon which button has been clicked by the user. So for this application has been written. For this purpose, this application has been written. So now you know the structure of the program. So whatever classes you want to use in your program, you have to import all those particular classes and package. So import java.applet, import java.awt, and import java.awt.event. So these packages I required. So I had imported all these particular package. Then I'm going to write down my program. So always the class should be public. Public class, always the class which consists of main method, or in applet class, the which consists of init method, it should be public. So public class event handling example extends applet, implements action listener. This class extends applet and implements action listener. Means this is a subclass of applet class, and it is going to implement the action listener interface. This means that action perform method must be written within the body of this particular class. It must have to override the method of the action listener interface. So we are going to create 3 buttons, B1, B2, B3, which are used for red, blue, and green color respectively. Then init method is there. In our applet case, we have discussed that whatever code that is related to initialization, you have to put all that particular code within the body of init method. So create all these button. B1 equals to new button red, B2 equals to new button blue, and B3 equals to new button green. Then register this button with the listener. So B1 dot add action listener this, B2 dot add action listener this, and B3 dot add action listener this. Then add this button on the frame. So that's why add B1, add B2, and add B3. Then next slide, please. So now what did we had did up till now? Up till now we had created a frame, we had created 3 buttons, and we had added all those 3 buttons on the frame. Now we want to handle the event. Which event? Button click event. If user clicks on that particular button, we want to do something. What we want to do? If user clicks on the red button, we want that the background window of the applet should be painted with the red color. If user clicks on blue button, we want that the applet should be painted with a blue color. So that's why this method, action perform method, has been written. So public void action perform, this method is going to take object of kind of type action event e, and this action event object is required for us to understand that who has generated the action event, means who is the source for this particular action event. So for determining that, we are going to make use of get source method, and then we are going to check whether button 1 has clicked, whether button 2 has clicked, or whether button 3 has been clicked. So if e dot get source double equals to b1, this means that button 1 has clicked. If button 1 has clicked, means if red button has clicked, what color we have to set to background? We have to set color equals to red. So that's why we are using set background method, and it takes the object of type color. Here color constant, color dot red, means this is a color constant which indicates the red color. So if e dot get source double equals to b1, means if my button, if the source of the event is b1, if the event is generated by button b1, I want to paint the applet with red color. So that's why set background is going to be set the background to the red color. Then else, if the source is not equals to b1, it must be either b2 or it must be b3. So if it is b2, then I have to set the background color equals to b. And if it is not b1, if it is not b2, what does it mean? It means that definitely it's equals to b3. and B3 is for green. So that's why else set background color equals to green. So this is the program which demonstrates how to handle events. And you are getting the output also, that when I click on the red button, the color is going to be changed to red. You might have seen this particular output also. So this is how you can handle events in AWT. Next slide, please. So along with this action event, what are the several types of events which are available in AWT hierarchy? So event object is a class which is present in the root of the inheritance hierarchy for AWT events. Then you have AWT event, several types of event, action event, we have discussed it in detail. Then you have adjustment event, component event, item event. Then from component event, you have focus event, input event, paint event, and window event. And there are two kind of input, either you can have a key or you can have a mouse. So key event will be there or mouse event will be there, and from mouse you have a mouse wheel events. So this is the hierarchy of the AWT classes. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We are going to discuss the corresponding interfaces in detail later on. So there are two kinds of events that are generated. These are called as semantic and low level event. So what is meant by a semantic event? So semantic event is one that express what the user is doing, such as clicking a button. We can say that action event is a semantic event. And low level events are the events which makes these semantic event possible. Low level events are those events which makes these event possible. So in the action event, in the case of a button click, what what is happening? So when you are clicking the button, you are going to press your mouse. So mouse is down, then you are moving the mouse and you are releasing that particular mouse. So mouse down is a series of mouse moves and a mouse up, but only if the mouse up is happened within the button area. So these are the low level events. So semantic event is one which express what the user is doing, and low level events are the events which makes the semantic events possible, which makes the semantic event possible. So adjusting a scroll bar is a semantic event, but dragging the mouse is a low level event. So some examples I have given over here. Next slide, please. So here, in short, I am going to discuss that what are the interfaces which you can use for handling several types of events, and what are the sources who are going to generate these particular events, what are the methods which are available in this particular listener interface. So action listener interface is there, which has a single method, action perform method, and the action listener action listener interface is responsible for handling the action event which are generated by abstract button, J combo box, J text field, or the timer control. Then you have adjustment listener interface which has adjustment value change method. You have item listener interface which have item state change method, and focus listener interface which has two method, focus gain and focus loss. So this focus listener events, these focus events are generated by component source. Next slide, please. Then key listener interface is there, which is responsible to handle the events which are generated by the various keys. So either you are going to press a key, you are going to release a key, or you are going to type a key. So key press, key release, key type. These three methods are available in this listener interface, which are used for handling the events that are generated by your key. Then mouse listener interface corresponds to handle the events which are generated by mouse, mouse press, mouse release, mouse entered, mouse exited, and mouse click. So several parameters are there, means where mouse click. If you want to determine that particular thing, then you can use get x and get y parameters. This will give you x and y coordinate of the pointer of that particular mouse where you have clicked that particular mouse. Get click count parameter returns you the click count. Then get point parameter will provide you the coordinates of the point where your mouse is currently pointing. Similarly, if you are working with a keyboard, then which key has exactly pressed? What is the code of that particular key? What is the character of that particular key? So you can have a get key char, get key code type of a parameter which are available in key listener interface. Next slide, please. Then you have mouse motion listener. It has mouse drag and mouse move method. You have mouse wheel listener, which has mouse wheel move method. You have Windows listener. This Windows listener interface has 7 methods: Windows closing, Windows open, icon, Windows iconified, Windows de-iconified, Windows close, Windows activated, and Windows deactivated. And Windows focus listener interface has Windows gain focus and Windows lost focus. And and Windows last one, last interface, that is Windows state listener interface, which has Windows state change method, which is going to handle the events which are generated by Windows. Next slide, please. So I think you might have understand that how to handle events in Java programming language, and you have and how to write the programs which can able to deal with several kinds of events. And you might have at least get an idea that what are the various interfaces which are available in Java programming language, which are used for writing down the events which can be handled regarding with the specific component. Then we are going to discuss the next topic, that is model view controller. So what is model view controller? So model, whenever we are saying that we are adding the component. So when we are adding the component, when we are adding a user interface component such as like a button, the or a checkbox, text field, text area, tree control. So when you are adding these particular component, what does it has? So every component has 3 characteristics. The first characteristic is the content, such as what is the state of the button, or what is the text which is available in a text field. Then second one is the visual appearance, what is the size, what is the color. Then third one is the behavior, how button react to the events. If specific event has been occur, how it reacts. So these 3 characteristics are associated with each and every control. So it's content, visual appearance, and behavior. And what is the what is the object oriented concept? The object oriented programming language, the main emphasis or the main thing is on what modulation. So we don't make the object, one object responsible for too much thing. So we don't have a single button which is responsible for everything. So instead what we want to separate the look and feel of the component associated with the one object. Means one object is responsible for look and feel of that particular component, and other object is responsible for the content of that particular component. So model view controller design patterns allows us, or which teaches us how to accomplish this particular thing. So we are going to discuss it. Next slide, please. Next. So model view controller implements 3 separate classes. One is responsible for model, second is responsible for view, and third is responsible for the controller. Model, which stores the content of that particular component. View, which displays the content. And controller, which handles the user input. Means for a same thing, you can have multiple views. Means if you have given, suppose here one diagram is present in this particular slide. So the content is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This is the content. But at this particular time, the things which are visible to me are just brown fox jump. Only these things are visible to me. So what is the model? Model is the whole content. And what is the view? Just these 3 words which are visible to me at that particular time. So view is just whatever displaying to me. So that is just 3 words, and model is the whole content, and controller which handles the user input. So this pattern specifies model view controller pattern, specifies precisely how these objects are going to interact with one another. Next, please. Then we are going to discuss the next topic, that is layout manager. So what is a layout manager? So we had added all those particular components within the container like a frame. Means we add label, we add text box, we added buttons. In next example, we added 3 buttons in that particular frame. So whenever you are adding these particular components, then how this component can be placed inside the container. So who is responsible for that particular thing? So layout managers are having the responsibility for placing that particular components inside the container like frame or panel, and for specifying or sorry, for determining the positions and size of those particular components in the container. So whenever you are going to add the component in a container, individual components like text field, radio buttons inside that particular frame, then JDK has no form designer. Nowadays, IDEs are there, Java enabled development environments are there, and they are going to provide you the layout tools. But if you are writing the code from scratch without using IDE, you don't have any kind of thing to position that particular component on your form. So you have to write down the code. So in general, the components are placed inside the container, and the layout manager is responsible for determining the position and size of that particular component in the container. Next, please. Next, next slide, please. So each container has its own default layout manager. But if you want that these components are added in this particular way, then you can set the layout of that particular container according to your choice. So each container has a default layout manager. If you don't specify, it will take it as whatever the default layout manager for that particular container. But you can always specify whatever layout manager you want. Suppose, for example, if you want to add the component in a grid fashion, 4 by 4, in a matrix kind of thing, 4 rows and 4 columns, and within that 4 rows and 4 columns you want to put the components. Suppose if you want to write down the calculator application and you want to place the button for 0, 1, 2, 3, these digits along with the operator plus, minus, division, and likewise. So then you can require the grid layout. So in this way you have to set the layout. Panel dot set layout means for which container you want to set layout. I want to set layout for the panel. So panel dot set layout, how you want to set it? I want to set it to the grid layout. So new grid layout, and the constructor of grid layout requires the 2 arguments, that how many rows and how many columns do you want. So 4 and 4, 4 number of rows and 4 number of columns. So that's why this statement is written over here. So it uses the grid layout class to lay out the components in the panel. And when you add the component to the container, then add method of the container will going to pass this component and any placement directions to the layout manager. Next slide, please. So there are several layout managers available in Java programming language. Some of them are available in AWT package. Some of them are available in Swing package. So border layout, flow layout, grid bag layout are available in AWT, and box layout, that whatever we are going to discuss in our today's session, that is available in Swing package. Next, please. The border layout manager is default layout manager of the content pane of every JFrame. Means if you are using a JFrame, then the layout manager, the default layout manager is a border layout manager. So border layout manager adds the component to the directions. So in the diagram you might have getting north, south, east, west, and center. So which component you want to add at which place? How do you specify? Frame dot add. Which component? Say button B1, border layout dot south. In this way, so button is added at the south side in the container. So in this way, whenever I'm adding the component, I can use this particular constant: south, north, east, west, and center. And I can specify the position of that particular component in the container. Next slide, please. The next layout is a flow layout. So flow layout is used to arrange the component in line, one after another in a flow. And this is the default layout for applet or panel. So if you want to set flow layout, then you can write down the statement in this way: f dot set layout new flow layout dot right. Means whenever I'm adding the component, I'm adding the component from right side. If you are seeing the output of this particular program, then my components are from right side. My components that are added are aligned to right side. These are aligned to right side and that are added in one line. Whatever possible, that components are added in one line. Next slide, please. Next layout is a grid layout. So grid layout arranges all the components in rows and columns, and the components are arranged like a spreadsheet. So all components, which whenever you are using grid layout, all the components are having the same size. So when you resize the window, the buttons are automatically growing and shrinking. So whenever you are going to resize the window, the buttons are automatically grows and shrink, and all buttons have identical size. Suppose if you want to create a program which we can say as a calculator application, that time we require to use this grid layout for placing the buttons for corresponding digits and operators. Next slide, please. Then grid bag layout. Suppose if you want that the size of the component should not identical. In grid layout, what the size will going to be identical of each component. If your component is of varying size, then you can use grid bag layout. So the Java grid bag layout class is used to align the components vertically, horizontally, or along their baseline. And these components may not be of a same size. So the size of the component can be varied. And this grid layout object maintains dynamic and rectangular grid of the cells. You might have seen the grid bag layout, how the components are added in grid bag layout. So the component button 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the size of button 5 is different. In grid layout, we can't do this particular thing. The size of each component should be same. In grid bag layout, it is possible. Next slide. Next, please. So if you want to create a grid bag layout, so a little bit code you have to write down for specifying the constraint. Here, the code I have written for adding one component using the grid bag layout. So you have to create a grid bag layout, create the object grid layout grid equals to space should be there, grid bag layout space grid equals to new grid bag layout. Then grid bag constraint we had created grid bag constraint gbc equals to new grid bag constraint, and set layout equals to grid layout. We are specifying the title. Then grid bag layout equals to need new grid bag layout, and we are setting the layout of this particular component, this dot set layout. Then we specify the constraint that gbc dot fill horizontally, gbc dot grid x equals to 0, gbc dot grid y equals to 0, means x 0 y 0, means it goes to the first. The button 1 will going to be at the first position. So whatever output you have seen in the previous case, so this code is respect to that this piece of code is respect to that particular uh, respect to the part of that particular output. Only one button 1 that is added with the help of the grid bag layout. So for that particular purpose, this code has been written. Next, please. In this way, you can add the subsequent buttons. The next layout that we required many times is the box layout. So here I have discussed the layouts which we are commonly using. So box layout is used to arrange the components either in vertical fashion or in a horizontal fashion. And for this particular purpose, box layout provides us four constants. These are x-axis, y-axis, line axis, and page axis. Here, the components are added vertically in in this particular box, and here these components are added with respect to the y-axis. So button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, and button 5. So you will get the output in this way. Box layout also we are not using generally. We are generally using flow layout, border layout, and grid layout. These three layouts are sufficient for writing down the programs which we required in our day-to-day life. Next slide, please. So here the simple program is written which demonstrate how to construct the layout for specifying the components. So here what I did, I tried to added 5 buttons, and I specify the layout for these particular 5 buttons. So again, whatever classes you are going to use, you have to import those particular packages in your program. So import java.awt and import javax.swing package. Public class layout example, frame object layout example constructor is there, where I had created a new frame, and I had created 5 buttons, button b1, b2, b3, b4, and b5. Now how to create a button, every one of you knows that. Here J button I had used. So J button is a swing version, it is not a AWT version, so that's why swing package is imported over here. J button is a class which is available in this particular package. So J button B1 equals to new button. What is the caption for that particular button? It should be A. Next slide, please. So now I want to add these 5 buttons on the frame. So how I can do? F dot add B1 means button B1 is added on frame F. F dot add B2. Similarly for all 5 buttons. F dot add B3, F dot add B4, F dot add B5. So it should be on the separate line, but for just saving the space, um, I had added them horizontally. Then I want to set layout of this particular frame. So f dot set layout. Which layout I want to set? I want to set flow layout. And how I want to align this component? I want to align this component at the right side. So that's why flow layout dot right. So I had set the flow layout of the right alignment. Then set size method is used for setting the size of the frame. F dot set size 300 300. By default, the frame is not visible. If you want to make the frame visible, you have to make use of set visible method. So f dot set visible true. Then this frame is visible. So these 5 buttons I had created, added them on a frame, set the layout for those 5 buttons, set the size for the frame, and make the frame visible. Finally, the main method is there, and in the main method I'm simply going to create the object of this layout example, which will going to call the constructor, and the constructor will going to add those particular components on the frame. So this is the program which demonstrate how to set the layout for the container. Next slide, please. So I think you might have understand the things. Very simple example I have taken over here for demonstrating the topics. The topics are the main part of the Java programming language, which we have discussed in our today's session. But due to time constraint, I can't able to discuss them in detail. So whatever I think that is important and that is basic, you needs to understand that thing, then only you can understand. So that topic I tried to cover in my today's session. For preparing this particular presentation and program, I had make use of certain references. These are given over here. So those who want to study Java, they can use the core Java book, which is available in 2 volume, volume 1 and volume 2 by Horstman and Gary Cornell. This is a very nice book. You can follow this particular book. Along with this, you can follow certain sites also which are which are available, and certain small courses are available on those sites also, so you can learn Java programming language from there also. Next slide, please. So thank you one and all for the patience, listener. Next, please. If you have any question, then you can ask me, or you can feel free to write me. Hello, sir. Hello.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks, one and all.
Okay. Huh? Okay. Second question.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Before we start our first session, I would like to introduce Mr. Manoj Sharma, sir. He is currently working as Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Management in MD, Palesha College, Dhule. He has 21-year teaching experience. He has done guest lectureship in R.C. Patel Engineering College. He has attended various conferences and seminars. So I request to Mr. Manoj Sharma, sir, to start the session.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me? Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I start with my topic called as say JDBC. Now, basically, what you had in session number 1, 2, and 3, now it is a fourth part of the session. I complete this part of core Java, as all three tutors, what they have taught you is somewhat say basics of Java. Now today I start with the actual concept of what do you mean by the Java database connectivity. Okay, now before starting, some few slides I have brought to you. I'll just go through those slides, and then practically we will see how do you write your programs, how do you manage it, and how do you implement it. So I start with the concept of I start with the concept of Java database connectivity. Now, when I say Java database connectivity, let us understand the basics of Java database connectivity. Why we require Java database connectivity? Let us understand all these kind of things. We all know that when we design an application, we feed some data in the application, we input some data in the application, where that data is going to go. So it is very important that we need to store the data somewhere. Now to store that data, we require Java database connectivity concept. Okay, just a small example if I want to put in front of you. For example, just imagine you all have email IDs. Now when you create email ID at a machine, you store that email ID. That means you submit the form, you have a form, and once you have the form, you fill up the data in that form, And when you click a submit button, the data goes somewhere. Now where that data goes, then that data goes in a database. So that is how your database is important. Can you just imagine an application without a database, without the storing capacity? So every small to small application, whatever you design, requires a database. So that means what? Database are very, very important. And whatever is been put down in your form, in your interface, you need to store it so that in future you can refer that database. That is what the concept of database is. So in the respect of Java, if I want to do this, it has been done by the concept called as a JDBC. So this is what do you mean by the concept JDBC? It will give you the connectivity to connect to the backends. Now the question comes, front end and back end. There are two parts. When I write a program, there are two parts, front end part and the back end part. The front end part consists of the user interface, where the controls are there. In the previous lecture, if you have gone through, you might be knowing about the swing components or AWT components like table, text box, checkbox, radio buttons, all that. So these components will fetch the data, will hold the data. Now where this data must go, it has to be stored somewhere. Now to store that data, we require the concept called as say JDBC in Java. So Java becomes the front end tool, and on the back end side, you require a database, say DBMS or RDBMS kind of concept. You might have heard this word, Microsoft Access or Oracle or SQL Server. There are many things that come around as a database. So front end is Java, and say MySQL, you have SQL Server, you have. So Java, what is the job of Java? Will fetch the Java will hold the data, and that data needs to go somewhere. So by what mechanism we are going to store them is called as JDBC. Okay, so this is what this slide is all about, giving you the introduction of JDBC. Now, when you talk about the architecture of JDBC, my dear friends, there are two basic layers of JDBC architecture. The first layer is called as JDBC API, and the second layer is called as JDBC driver. Understand the difference between these two kind of things. So JDBC API are the classes that are used to manage the data at Java side. On the second side, that is on the say a different side, on the client side, we can say you require JDBC drivers that will look after your data, and that is going in the proper database or not. That work is been done by, say, what we can say drivers. So there are two parts. The first part in the architecture is the Java APIs. API means the classes or the interfaces that have been required to design the Java code. And on the second side, you do require some drivers that will help you to take your data to the proper database. So they are the channels, they are the mediums that will transfer the data in the proper database. If you can see the diagram, you'll get to know that your Java application is contributing Java API, and then the data goes to the drivers, and the drivers will put down your data in the proper database. The database can be Oracle, it can be SQL Server, it can be anyone. So that is the meaning of what we can say the architecture of a JDBC. Now coming on Java API, I was telling you something about Java API. Some names you should know, my dear friends. When you know about JDBC, when you write the code of JDBC, some classes, some interfaces you should be knowing thoroughly. Like driver manager is a very important class that will help you to connect to the proper database. Then you have connection class, then you have connection interface, sorry, then you have statement interface, then you have result set that will store the data, and then you have a SQL exception. All these are bunch of Java API, and this bunch is copied in one what we can say package, and the name of the package is java.sql. I think so the word package is known by you all people now. You have understood the meaning of packages. So Java, the JDBC requires the API, and these APIs are all stored in one package, and the name of the package is java.sql. So these classes are very important. Like driver manager is very important, connection is very important, statements are very important, and result set are very important. What is the job of driver manager? The driver manager will locate the proper driver of your database. So it will have a mechanism to link with your database. So that will be in the concept of what we can say driver manager. Drivers are just like the driver that drive the vehicle. Very similarly, these are the drivers. They will communicate between you and the database. So there are different drivers available in Java. Then comes the connection. So connection is very important. Without connection, you cannot, any language, not only Java, I'm saying, if you go to any other language like VB.NET or C#.NET or any other language that you might be knowing, if you want to connect to the backends, you do require connections. So connection class is there in Java also. And how do you connect? Say through that practically, I will be showing you how you connect to the backends. Then comes statements. When I talk with JDBC, very importantly, all of you must be knowing about SQL, that is structured query languages. The instructions that you write, the statements that you write in SQL format has to be known by you. Without that, you cannot write the codes of what we can say JDBC. Some very important syntaxes you should be knowing, like how do you interpret the select command? What is the purpose of insert command? What is the meaning of update and say what we can say delete command? There is no such time that I will be having that I will go towards SQL and teach you all the concepts of SQL. But in the programming itself, I will be taking the SQL commands and I'll be explaining you the purpose of these SQL statements. Now, if you want to fire these SQL statements, you require statements in Java. When I talk about statements, Java class functions. You have normal statement, you have private statement, and you have callable statements. All have their own different jobs. Practically, I'll be showing you the purpose and the use of all these kind of things. And the last one, the result set is very important. Result set, as the name tells you, is a collection of the data. It will store the data. Practically, when we go to an example, I will show you the meaning of what we can say the result set. So this is about the API that JDBC has provided us, very importantly. Coming on drivers. So I told you architecture consists two parts, the Java API and the driver API. I told you there are two important sections. So Java API consists all these classes, and now the drivers. Drivers are 4 in number. When I speak about drivers, these drivers are 4 in number, all having their own capacities and capabilities. And accordingly, one driver you need to select. Very simple. Say, for example, I have a car and I want to run the car. And I have 4 people who can drive the car. How many of them can drive the car at one time? Only one I will allow. So I will make one of the child to sit on that driver's seat and he will drive my car. In the similar manner, there are 4 drivers available that Java is providing us. One of them I need to go and I need to select. So there are 4 categories. There is some small differences between the categories, some small differences between the concepts. The very first one, type 1, there are type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. There are 4 types of drivers available in the concept called as JDBC. The very local driver, very what we can say basic driver is the type 1 driver. It is called as JDBC ODBC bridge driver. Now, what is the concept over here? Now, when I say JDBC ODBC bridge driver, JDBC, it is a part of Java. So that will take the data and it will transfer it to the ODBC part, open database connectivity part. So it will be given to the client machine and the client machine will store that data in the database. That is what the meaning of JDBC ODBC bridge driver is that. And very importantly, I want to convey you that if you are very say you are studying Java, and if you are new to Java, this is the simplest what we can say driver that you can select with. So it is by default available in your machine. It is not required that you install it. So it is by default present. All 3, type 2, type 3, type 4, you need to install on your machine and then you can use it. But this one is by default present on your machine. That is what the concept is. So this is so today in my session, I will be using the type 1 driver, that is JDBC ODBC bridge driver. This is the first one. Then comes the second one. It is called as JDBC native API. Now, as I told you that JDBC takes the data and transfers to native API created by C and C++. So it has been given to a third party. The third party takes the charge and it will transfer that data to your database. It is called as type 2 driver, called as by the name called as JDBC native API. So the first one was JDBC ODBC, the second one JDBC native API. So there is a linking between JDBC and native API. If you can see the diagram, you'll get to know that how they have been connected to one another. This is type 2 driver. It is far more better than JDBC ODBC, but for a new student, for a new person, you can start with the first one. Once you understand the concept, how do you connect it, you can fetch any of them and you can start working with type 2 or type 3 or type 4. This is type 3 called as JDBC, say net pure, say pure Java. Now this uses 3-tier architecture. 3-tier architecture. The first tier belongs to Java. The second tier belongs to the DSN that we create or the mechanism that driver provides you, and the third tier is your database. So you can just go through the middle tier where the mechanism is going to happen, where your data will be taken from you, and it will be going to the middle tier, and after processing it will go to your what we can say database. It is called as JDBC net pure Java. And the last one is the thin driver, the thinnest driver, the most beautiful driver that Java ever has produced is this one. It is purely Java code. Whatever is there is been incorporated inside Java itself, and that's why it becomes very easy to handle with this kind of what we can say driver. This is all about the concept of what we can say drivers. If I briefly explain you why will we use say JDBC, because I want to design 2-tier or 3-tier applications. What are 2-tier applications? What are 3-tier application? Let us understand the mechanism of 2-tier and 3-tier. Now, when we talk about 2-tier applications, take this into consideration. Whenever we talk about application, there are 3 things. The first thing is called as interface. The second thing is called as the business logic. And the third thing is called as database. So the first thing is Java, where you are going to create your interface. The second thing is the business logic, where you will be applying the code of what we can say JDBC to fetch and transfer the data to the databases. And the third layer is called as database, where you have your Oracle database or SQL database or MySQL database or Access database. Whatever is there on your machine, you can use that. So there are 3 components: interface, the first one; business logic, the second one; and database, the third one. These 3 components, sometimes they are used on 2 machines, or sometimes they are used on 3 machines. When they are on 2 different modules, it is called as 2-tier. In that case, interface is 1 tier and database is 1 tier. Now, what about business logic then? The business logic, it's divided 50-50% on the first one and the second one. This might be the job, or 30%, 70%, or 25-75. Whatever according to the application, we can switch it. So only 2 modules are created, the user interface and the database. So this application is called as say 2-tier. And what are 3-tier applications? Where interface is different, your business logic is different, and your database is different. If all 3 are on 3 different modules, this is called as 3-tier applications. My dear friends, we are going to design 2-tier and 3-tier applications using what we can say Java and JDBC. So let us do it practically. Now, see, till date, if what you have understood by the means of slides, what comes accordingly. Now, what I will be teaching you, I'll be teaching you practically, exactly practically, how to do the programs, how to go to the databases, how to see the records, how to run the program of Java. So be ready with me to understand the mechanism of how the programs are to be understood and to be evaluated in the concept of what we can say Java. Okay, so this was the basics of what we can say, how we work with JDBC, the basic theory of how do we work with JDBC. Now I start practically teaching you how you work with JDBC. So be attentive and understand what kind of things I need to do when you work with JDBC. The very first thing, I should open a database. I should create a table. Now, whenever you talk about JDBC, so it is but natural that you might be knowing about the tables and all that. So let me start with one of the table. Now, my machine is having only one database installed on it. So let me show you. You all can see my machine now. So see, I start with one of my database. See, all of you can see Office database that is called as Access. I can go with Oracle, I can go with SQL Server, but unfortunately they are not installed over here, and I start with Access. So what is my first step? What is my first step? My first step is to create a database. See what I should be doing. Just follow me how I'm doing it. So I come to here, file, I click on new database. As soon as I come to new database, see it is asking me about the database name. It is asking me about the database file name. You can see here. I will just type here the database name. For example, systel. My database name is systel, and I should be clicking here so that the path can be given by me. So I click here and I just give the path where I can store it. So I will be storing the file at, for example, D drive. Okay, so my database name is systel. I'm having the version 2007 or whatever version you have. You click on OK. As soon as you click on OK, it comes back here telling you systel.accdb is the file that will be created, and I click on create button. Okay, a little knowledge of Access is required, or a little knowledge of Oracle or SQL Server is required. I click on create button. My dear friends, now we are ready. We are ready for, say, what we can say, the creation of the table. Now what you do is that you can see here table number 1. Now what you do is that you just right click on it and click on design view so that I can create a table. For example, I click on design view. See, you can see here table name. You can see here table name. I will just take the table name as student, for example. Understand what was systel? What was systel? It was database. Now what is student? Student is a table that I'm creating. I click on OK. Now see, you can see here the field names and the data types. So you can understand about what actually mean by the field name and the data types. So field name is, for example, roll number is my field. The data type is number. Say ST name is my second field. It holds text. For example, say ST class is my third field, holds text, and ST fees, for example, it stores number. So if you can see, roll number is my first field, ST name becomes my second field, ST class becomes my third field, and ST fees is my fourth field. So there are 4 fields that I have created in my table. I will repeat. Systel is my database, student is my table having 4 fields. Roll number, my first one, ST name, the second one, ST class, the third one, and ST fees, the fourth one. The first one is number, the next 2 are text, and the last one is once again the number. Okay, in this number, I want fractions to be included, for example. If you want that, you can just change this. Otherwise, keep it as it is. Okay, now I click on save. I click on save here. My table has been created. Now what I do is that I add few records in it. See, I add a few records in it. Open, and I add record. Roll number 1, I add few records. Just imagine there are 2 records I have inserted. Roll number, name, class, and fees. So there are 2 records that I have inserted in my table called as student. The table is been created. My database is ready. Everything is ready. So let us close this. For time being, I close this. Okay, I minimize my access. So my job number 1 is done. What was my job? My job was to create a database, and I was successful in doing that. I created systel as a database. I had student as a table, and there are 4 fields that I have created. My step number 2 is to create DSN, data source name. Now how do I create data source name? All of you can just go through it carefully so that you can understand how I created data source name. I'm using window 10 here. So for window 10, say what you do is that just click here and start typing administrative tool. As soon as you start typing administrative tool, you get administrative tool open here. Or the other students who are using XP or 7, they can open control panel, and in control panel you will find administration tool. So just locate administration tool. I repeat, just locate administration tool. It is available in control panel. Okay, so I just start administration tool. You can see here ODBCC. You all remember I'm using JDBC ODBC driver. So I'm creating the second half part. JDBC part I will be teaching you now. Now I'm working with ODBC. So there will be a bridge created between JDBC and ODBC. So I will go to ODBC data source. I'll click add here. I'll click on add, and then I select what kind of database I am using. See, I'm using Access database. So you can see here. If you are using Oracle, please you go for Oracle. See, you can go with Oracle. If you are using SQL Server, you can go with SQL Server. So what kind of database you are using? It is so simple. It is so simple. You just need to change this step. So I'm working with Access. I'll come back on Access, Microsoft Access driver, and click on finish. I repeat, I opened administration tool. First step. Second step, I went on ODBC data source, and then I'm doing all this process. I select the driver name. Now here comes, see, data source name. Here comes data source name. You need to write a name. For example, I will just give DSN. For example, koi bhi naam likh sakte, you can write anything. Whatever name, it's a name of a variable. So you can assign any name. So I'm writing DSN. The description can be created. My DSN, you can write anything over there. Remember this name. Remember this name. I'll just change the name as DSN1, for example. I just write DSN1 for that. Okay. After doing this, after doing the DSN job, please click on select. Don't forget to click on select. Click on select. And where should you go? You should go to D drive. Why should you go to D drive? Because I think so the file was saved there. See the file, systel.accdb. Okay, so what you need to do is that you click on select button and you browse the file that you created. So I browse the file that was systel.accdb. I click on OK. I click on OK, and I click on OK. My job is done. So 2 steps I have completed. What was my first step? My first step was to create database. Done. Second step, to create DSN, data source name, completed. Now the third step starts. The third step is to open Notepad and type the program. So it is the third step that I'm going to do. The third step is like this. So I start typing the program, import java.sql.star class and class name. For example, my code 1, I can write like this. Then public static void main, my code. I'm writing my code of Java. You need to make the code safe. And how do you make the code safe? You need to write it in try catch block. Very first line is class dot for name, sun dot jdbc dot odbc dot jdbc odbc driver. This is how do you write. Remember, this is the driver name, jdbc odbc bridge driver, type 1 driver I'm using. Then comes connection. You all remember this classes. I took this classes, connection cn equals to, I can write any name. Then comes the class called as a driver manager. So connection is one of the interface, driver manager is one of the class. We have gone through these classes when I talked something about Java API, Java JDBC API. Get connection, the method name. Okay, then you write here JDBC colon ODBC colon DSN1. Now what is DSN1? You remember? Which name is this? DSN1. DSN1 was the name that I gave when I created the DSN. When I went to administration tool, ODBC data source, and I selected Microsoft Access driver. At that time, I gave the name as DSN1, data source name 1. Username is not there, password is not there. If you're using Oracle, you need to write Scott Tiger if you remember Scott Tiger. Okay, so this is what do you mean by the concept. Then I come on statement st equals to cn dot create statement. My dear friends, remember the words I told you. JDBC API. The first one was driver manager. The second one was connection. The third one was statement. You can see all of them I'm using. The fourth one is result set. So result set rs equals to st dot. I should write here execute query. Do you remember the table name? Select star from. What was the name of the table? Do you remember the name of the table? The table name was student.
Student.
If you all remember, the table name was student. And this is how you write the 4 lines. These 4 lines are very, very important. The first line is class dot for name. It is the type 1 driver I'm using. The second line is creating the connection. How do you create the connection? So connection, the name is equals to driver manager dot get connection is the method having 3 parameters. The DSN name, user and password. Then comes the statement, and this is how I create the statement. And the last one is result set. Result set is the place where the records are stored. Okay, now what I want this program is for what? What say I'm writing this program for? To display all records from a table. Yeah, so that is the thing I'm doing. Okay, now what I do is that I apply the loop. I don't know how many records are there, na? So I apply the loop, and you write like this: system.out.println rs.getInt plus. Now what should I write here? What should I write here? GetInt. See, for that I will go back to my access. I'll come back to my access. I'll open the file. I'll open my file. I'll just tell you, I'll just show you roll number, the first field. You can just go through this field. Roll number was my first field. I will write roll number here. Is it? Why I'm writing getInt? Why I'm writing getInt? Because roll number is integer. It's number. Okay. Then a space I can give. Then comes rs.getString. Now why I'm using getString, my dear friends? Because the second field is string. Exactly name you should copy. The third one, rs dot. Once again, it is a string. What is the name of that field? st class. I'm just copying and pasting it so that there is no mistake. And the last one is getInt. GetInt and the name of the field. What is the name of the field? This is the name of the field. Okay, so this is how do you write the code. I complete this part, and the bracket gets over. See, I understand the mechanism. I'll go through the whole program. And make you understand the meaning of each and every line. See, I started from java.sql.star. It's a package that you're going to use. All Java JDBC API are in java.sql. First thing. The second thing, class and class name is there. Opening bracket, public static void main, string args is there. Then comes the try block. From here we start the try block. It will end up here. See, from here I start. It will end up here. And then comes your say catch block. There is nothing in the catch block, but you need to make it safe. Okay. Now one line. Class.forName is type 1 driver that I'm using. It has to be written in this sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc driver. You have to write like this only. Second line, connection, some name equals to driver manager.get connection, and you need to provide the DSN name that you have used, you have created. The third line is you are going to fire SQL statement. See, you are writing SQL. See, understand, you are writing SQL. So for SQL, you require ST. And who is ST? ST is the instance of what we can say the statement interface. So take this into account, my dear friends. Statement ST equals to cn.create statement you need to create, and then you execute the query. Now what will happen if I write select star from the table name? Select star from table name, when you write, the records are fetched. The records are fetched and they will be copied to what we can say result set. Now everything is in there in result set. What I do is that I come to the first record. Basically it is at beginning of file. So I come to the first record and I fetch the value. I fetch roll number, I fetch name, I fetch class, I fetch fees, and I will print them. The loop gets continued. rs.next will bring on the second record. The roll number, name, class, and fees will be fetched and they will be displayed. So in this way, till the records are there in the table, we will see everything on the screen. My program is done. Let me show you the execution of this program. Before I start the execution, please close the database because it will not allow you to run the program. Okay, so my job is done. I will save the file. What should be the name of the program? You all have understood the previous 3 sessions. it has to be the name of the class. Okay, so I come to file, I click on save, I write my code1.java. Okay, where I'm saving it on D drive, I click on save button, my file is been saved. Now what I do is that I compile the code, and to compile the code, I open the command prompt. I go to D drive where the file has been saved. I assign the path. This will be taught. This has been taught to you in the previous sessions, I think so, because when Java has been there, it is compulsory that they will teach you how Java gets executed. So this is the way of executing Java. Java C. Then comes the name of the file, mycode1.java. Your file is been compiled now. Yeah, something is left after the brackets. Yeah, closing bracket, closing bracket. Yeah, so try block gets over, and we have the closing brackets of the main and the class. I save the file, I come back here, I compile the code is compiled now, and let us execute it. See the output. All 2 records, what I have entered in my database, you can see here. One thing I do, I go back to the systel database, and I add my record also, for example. Okay, I add my record over there. I save the file, I close it. See, now I'm adding the 3rd record. I'm adding the 3rd record. I come back here. I execute the code. I will not compile the code. I will execute the code. You can see that the 3rd record is also displayed. Is it? So this is what the mechanism of how practically we can understand the meaning of JDBC has to be working with. Okay, so this program was to display the records. Now, one thing is to take the record, and one thing is to give the records. So if I want to change the program, for example, I will have the next program as, I'll have this next program to display the records, rather to display the record, to store the record in a table. Okay, so I'm using Java, and now what I'm doing is that I'm taking the value from you people and I'm transferring it in the database. That is what I'm going to do now. Okay, now just understand the mechanism that I need to. Same table, I will take the same table. So now 2 things I'm not going to do. One thing, I will not be creating the database. Same database we are going to use. Second thing, I will not be creating the DSN. Same DSN we are going to use. Okay, the code will change. So let us change the code now, and I start writing in this way. See, java.util.star, class.forName is there, statement is there, nothing changed, no change. Now the change comes here. I need to write like this, result set dot type underscore scroll underscore sensitive comma result set dot conquer updatable. Now this is what you need to have. If you want to add records in the table, you please make your result set updatable. See, understand, otherwise it is static. It is only going to give you the records. It will not modify the records. If you want to modify the records, you have to make the result set updatable. And one more thing, sensitive. Sensitive means what? I want to jump on the last record because I want to add new record. There are already 3 records present in the table. I want to add the 4th one or 5th one. So I need to go at the bottom of my table. That's why it is important to make it sensitive. So 2 things are required to make it sensitive and to make it updatable. Otherwise it is static and it is insensitive. Take this into account. Okay, so first 4 lines as it is, nothing changed, no change in them. Then comes the class called as a scanner. Why should I use scanner? Because I want to read something. So I have the class called as a scanner in the brackets system.in. Okay, now you might be knowing that there are 4 variables required. One is roll number, second is name, third is class, and the 4th is fees. So take the 4 values from the user and just go on doing the job. So I will take a variable, for example, ANS. I will apply a loop here. I will ask the user. What I will ask the user? I will ask the user to enter roll number. Okay, and I will store that in a variable called as say R. You might be knowing this. You might be knowing the methods that this I'm using. The second thing I want, enter what? Enter the name of the student. And for that, I will be using next line. And I will be storing it in another variable, for example, string nm. Then I have the third one, enter, say what we can say class. And I will be storing it in another variable called as a CL. Then I have another field, enter fees. It is int, and I will be having say fee variable, and it is of int type. Okay, I write here. I am writing this line to reduce the buffer. Please note this. I am writing this line to reduce the buffer. This is what a person who works with Java, a person who works with JDBC will only know this. Means the one who works with the projects and programming, they will understand what are the pitfalls of this. So you have to write this kind of line, so reduce the buffer. Now comes the important line, rs dot. Move to insert row. See what I'm telling him? What I'm telling him, you go to such a row where I can add a new record. Then I will write rs dot update int. What is the name of the field? See, the name of the field is roll number. And what kind of value I want to copy? R. See this R. See this R that we have taken R in the field called as say roll number. Similarly, I will write rs dot update string stnm, and I want to copy nm in it. Rs dot update string. Then I have the next field as st class. St class, and I will copying cl in it. Rs dot. I have update int, the last one, and the name of the field was st fees. You can just see here, I'm just going through the exact words, st fees. My job is done, so save it permanently. Rs dot insert row will save it permanently. It will not be stored in the primary memory of the machine. It will go in the database. It is a very big concept. I won't go in that concept now, because say the rollback has to be taught to you, auto commit has to be taught to you. There are many things which are related to what we can say database. I just don't want to confuse you. What you do is that just write insert row, apne aap it will be doing everything. Okay, so my job is done now. Let me ask the user, add more, yes or no. ANS was the variable that I took, and I apply this while while ANS dot. You might be knowing about all these things, looping and say what we can say the string methods and everything. Okay, so I will apply this loop again and again. This loop will rotate again and again. This loop will go again and again till you say yes to it. So when you say yes, it will go up and it will read the values from you, store in the database. Once again, O up, it will take the value from you, store in the database. So you all need to understand what is the mechanism. What changes I made in the previous example and this example, please understand. The first change was java.util package. That was the first change that was required. Why do I require util? Because I'm using the class called as a scanner. You might be knowing the different ways of reading the values from keyboard. Whatever technique you know, you can use that technique. Okay, so this is what we require. Then I came and I modified this. That was a big change I made here. Two things you need to write: sensitive and updatable. You need to make your cursor in that manner so that the records can be stored in the proper manner. Okay, nothing was changed apart from that. Then this is a part of logic. I took 4 values from you from keyboard, and I'm copying those 4 values in the database. Okay, my job is done. You might be knowing how many records I have in that table. I have 3 records in that table. Now I will be adding few more records. I'll show you that the records have been added directly in the table. Okay, so what is this program? What is this program? This program is to what? To store records in the table. Two programs you all people should know. One is to take the value and the second is to store the value. Okay, so I'm saving the file. I compile the code. Sorry, it is 2 number now. I execute it. Okay, now he's asking me about roll number. So I'm giving him roll number as 4 because already 3 records are there. 4. The name value he's asking me. So suppose say I'm writing here HM Patil, say he is the owner of large degrees. So the classes can be given and the fees. So some fees value I can add here. Okay. So see, now he's asking me add more records. If I say yes, it will ask me once again enter roll number. So now if I add the 5th one also, say 5th one, say I just add any record now here. Okay, now I say no. So 2 records I have done with. So the program is out now. Where should I go and check the records? See, I will come back to Access. I'll come here. I'll open my file. My file is by the name called as a systel. I come here. See those records. See these records. So see what I am successful in doing. I'm successful in doing fetching the records from the keyboard, so from the table on the screen. And the second thing what I did is that I stored the record, say from my from what we can say keyboard to what we can say database. So this is what I am doing. So this was one way of doing it. Same job I need to do. Understand the third code, a small change if I want to do, and I want to show you. See here what I'm using, what kind of concept I'm using here. I'm using statement. Understand, if same thing I want to do using some other part, yahi program karna hai, yahi program solve karna hai, but by doing it in the different manner, not by using what we can say statement. So I'll just save the file. I'll just save the file and I will make it say my code 3. Okay, now I shall be using another thing. What that another thing is called as prepared statement. So statement can be used or prepared statement can be used. Now see, just go through the code carefully, see where I'm going to make the changes. So this is code number 3, line number 1 as it is, no change. Line number 2 as it is, no change. Now who is going out? Statement is going out. Who is going out? Result set is going out. So 2 lines are gone out. Now here comes a new line. What is that line? Prepared statement PST equals to CN dot prepare statement. Okay, what kind of statement you want to fire? You want to fire this statement. Yeah, you want to fire the statement. As I started my lecture and I told you that some SQL statement should be known by you. When you're coming on JDBC, you have to understand select, insert, update, and delete. 4 SQL statements you need to understand. Now, what is the meaning of this line? Insert into stored values. The meaning of this line is that 4 values I will be giving to you. You please copy those 4 values in the table. That is the meaning of these, what we can say meaning. Why question marks are given there? The question mark is given because those values are not yet given. So I will give them later on and you copy those values. That is the meaning of that. Okay, I come to scanner. See, I come to scanner. This is same, this is same, this is same. All things are same. Now what is going to change? This is going to change. This is going to change. Okay, so what I need to do, see, PST dot set int 1 number R. Understand the meaning of this line. Understand the meaning of this line. What is PST? What is PST? It is an object. It is a member, or we can say, of the prepared statement interface. We can say in that manner. It's an instance, we can say. So PST dot what I'm writing. Why I'm writing set int? Why I'm writing set int? The reason to write set int is because that variable that I'm setting is integer. And what is the meaning of 1? 1 means the first question mark. Understand that 1 means the first question mark and having the value r. In the similar manner, pst dot set string. The second question mark will have nm pst dot set string. The third question mark is cl set int. The fourth question mark is phi. Yes, so all 4 question marks are done with me. Now what I'm going to do is that pst dot and will execute update. So I have a method called, let's say, execute update. This is how I fire the queries. This is how I work with queries. So my job has been done. Add more. I can add something more here. Record saved. Add more. Okay, so my program is ready now. I'm ready to execute this code. I will save the file. I will take care that my database is not open. Yes, it is not open. I'll compile my code. This is 3 number. This is 3 number. See now, if you remember, I have added 2 records, the 4th one, the 5th one. I add the 6th record now. Say Prasad, say Kulkarni. The class is MCM and the fees is suppose say 5,500. Okay, he's asking me, do you want to add few records? I say yes to it. Say 7th number. I will add Chandrakant Kulkarni. The class is suppose say 12th standard and the fees is say 500. Okay, I want to save the record. No, I will not say no to it. Now come to access. Open what we can say the database. See these 2 records. See these 2 records. This is how you can manage the database and this is how you can manage the JDBC. So 2 things you should be knowing: how to get the values and how to store the values. This is what is very important in the respect of what we can say Java database connectivity. What is very important is understanding the meaning of the code and each and every line what you need to understand. There are many more things. It will take very long time for me if I want to go to swings and JDBC combination, or if I want to teach you servlets and JDBC combination, the 3-tier application, the GUI application, it will take more time, but that much we don't have. I just wanted to convey you the basics of what we can say JDBC that you need to understand. The first thing. Now, when I say about type 1 and type 2 drivers, I have something for you. I want just to show you that there are different drivers also. So if I use that driver, what will happen? I just made a copy over here to show you the different connections that have been required. See then. Suppose say if you're using Oracle, for example, okay, just these 2 lines will change. Nothing is going to change. Only these 2 lines are going to change. See the name oracle.jdbc.driver.oracle driver. Now, what is important? You need to install this. So, if those are those who are keen to work with Oracle or MySQL or SQL Server, what you need to do is that you go to Google and you type there that give the driver for Oracle for JDBC. A file will be downloaded on your machine. You please add the DLL in your code and then just add these 2 lines and your job is done. This is how do you work with Oracle. In the same manner, MySQL, many people study PHP and MySQL. So remove PHP, add Java. So Java and MySQL can be a combination, and for that you require this. But before starting this, you need to install this driver. This driver you need to install. Which driver is not required to be installed? This driver is not required to be installed. sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc driver. This driver is not required to be installed. It is there present on your machine. Nothing extra has been required. Only for any other database, if you want to do, you can go with the yes. Now, if I use this one and if I want to work with Oracle, yes, it is okay. Go to DSN and select Oracle. Go to DSN, select say SQL Server. You can do that. But if you want to change the type 2 or type 3, if you want, you need to download that particular file. That is what you need to understand the meaning and mechanism of all these kind of things. So this is all about what is the concept of say the topic JDBC. So what I had explained you, and I conveyed you all the message of what we can say JDBC. Thanks to the organizer who gave me the chance to come in contact with you all people and gave me the chance to explain you the concept of JDBC. Thank you. Over to systel manager.
Anybody wants to ask question? Please raise your hand. Good afternoon to all. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all. Consider it a great privilege to propose a vote of thanks to all who have witnessed this workshop as a memorable and successful event. It's our first and foremost due to heartfelt thanks to our chief patron, respected Dr. P.P. Patil, sir, Vice Chancellor, Kavitri Bhainabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. Honorable Professor Dr. B.V. Pawar, Registrar, Kavitri Bhainabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. And Honorable Mr. S.C. Ghate, sir, Chairman, Systel Technical Education Society, Dhule. I would like to thank our chief guest, Honorable Principal Dr. P.P. Chhajed, Dean, Faculty of Commerce and Management, Kavitri Bhainabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. Honorable Professor Dr. D.V. Mane, Sir, Regional Director, Nashik. Yashwantarao Chauhan, Maharashtra Open University. And Honorable Dr. H.M. Patil, Sir, Director, Systel Institute of Management and Research, Dhule. Next, I would like to thank our resource person, Mrs. Vijaya Ahire Ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of MCA, R.C. Patel Institute of Management, Research and Development, Shirpur. Next, I would like to thank our second resource person, Mrs. Rupali Patil Madam, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science in SSUPS, late Karmavir Dr. P.R. Gogre Science College, Dhule. Next, I would like to thank Dr. Harshali Patil Madam, Assistant Professor, Dr. Anna Sahib G.D. Bendai Mahila Vidyalaya, Jalgaon. Next, I would like to thank Mr. Manoj Sharma, sir, Assistant Professor of MD Palesha Commerce College, Dhule. So, last but not least, I want to express my gratitude to organizing committee, workshop coordinator and program coordinator and all the participants, devotion and support of committee. This workshop want to be successful. So all the participants fill the feedback form. Feedback link sent on workshop group. After fill the feedback form, you will get e-certificate. I declare end of workshop. Stay home, stay safe.